Is showing you how I go about creating my selectors. So what I'll do is usually I'll start by going into whatever reducer I've got. So in this case, it's just this initial state, and I'll write that. And then I'll kind of mimic what's going on with the initial state. So if I go into here, in this section, now I'll just kind of go through, see my console logs. I know that my initial state is structured where I have an ID, and then I have, let's see, so I've got my initial state here, so I've got assets, then I've got my IDs, and then I've got my categories and subcategories. So what I'm going to do over here is just go assets, and the ID is 123, ID is 123, and then I'm just looking to change it according to the subcategory. And say we're looking for cash, or no, in this case we're looking for secured. No, property assets. That's what it was. Now, I'll look at what I did for my selector just because I'm going to follow along because I already went through this. So I was just looking for the property names. So this is the formula that I wrote to convert it. So in order to do that, I took object.values of the net worth reducer, which is in this case is just the initial state, but we'll call it net worth reducer, dot assets. So I went object.values of the assets section. Then I just filtered it. If the subcategory name was property assets, then I mapped it to return the label. So I'm just going to go here, label, let's see, was crazy house. So if I'm to run this, so let's just gonna comment that out. And then I've got down here my little terminal. This is the runner here. I don't know if you use this at all, but I really like it. So my function will be convert const convert reducer to array. So this is the selector that I'm writing, and it's going to take a reducer, which in this case is the net worth reducer, and then we're going to convert it. So first thing I'm going to do is I want to go console log of reducer. So actually I'll go object dot values of reducer. Let's see if I haven't run it. Actually, I'll just have it do a return. And we're going to pass in net worth reducer. So this will actually be a return. And let's see what happens. So by doing the object.values, I've now converted it into an array. But I don't want to do that to both because I've got assets and liabilities. So I'm going to do net worth reducer dot assets. So now I have an array of each of these different things. So if I had a different one, so this is 124, and then we'll call this little house. Whoops, so I've got to put my comma there. So I could just have this huge list of assets, but because it's an object, which is what I need it to be an object when it's in Redux, but I can convert it now to an array. So I've got an array of these items. Then what I want to do is filter it. So we're going to do this dot reducer dot filter, and then do d dot sub cat. How do you spell category? I'll go like that. Equals property assets. So now I'm just getting an array of the ones that are property assets. So if I go like this, 1, 2, 5. If this is cash assets, I'm not going to be getting it. So I still just get the ones that are property assets. Then I'm going to map it. Boom. So this is how I got my array that just gives me the labels. And very similarly, so it's a function that takes the reducer and then does this. So over into our selectors, I received it up the top by doing const net worth reducer equals state dot net worth reducer. Then I did my property my property name selector, which is create selector. It takes the net worth reducer. So the formula or the format is a little different because of this fancy create selector formula. I took that, Then I ran that function on it and converted out just the property assets and their labels. So this is what we're doing with selectors. Now, that's a really simple case. As I go down a little bit more, this is where I need to do more complex stuff. So if I go into the chart projection selector, so this is where I took a whole bunch of different things and different math and stuff to create the projection, which is this long array. So what I had to do here was run math that added the total cash, the total investments, and then summed it up for every year so that we would just get a total for each of the categories, and then they would be presentable for this chart. So the chart had to have an age, then it had to have these different categories. So if we go over to here, what I did is I took all of these different things. Now, you don't have to worry about the mortgage schedule selector or these different selectors, but what's cool with selectors is you can pull in things. You can get like retirement age or investment return, which are held in different parts of Redux Store. So for the investment return, I got that, I think, up here. So in the state, I've got the user reducer has a birth year. So that's how I was getting the user's birth year. So you're going to need that because you want the projection to start at the user's birth year. Or no, not their birth year, at their current age. So I just did this little formula to convert this year minus their birth year to get their age. So now I've got their user age. Similarly with retirement age, I was able to get these details, which I don't think you need the retirement age. So I can pull this up here from state, and then when I go down here to create reducer, I have user age. Then what I did is I created an array. So you can see how here, this is an array, not an object. And for the array, I initialized it with a starter value. So the starter value in this case was number 0, or the 0 item. So the starter value, we started with the user age. So in this case, the user age is 42. Then the total cash. So I created these little formulas that sum the net worth reducer or they sum for the total cash. So this formula, I think I had shown it a little earlier, sums up, so sum category. So it goes in and then sums everything that has to do with that subcategory. So it'll sum all the cash assets, all the property assets. So it's summing them all together. Because in the chart, we want all the cash assets to be together. So here, total cash, we just want the total cash. We don't want everything broken down to all the different types of cash accounts. So I'm summing each of those ones. Then I run a for loop. And for this for loop, we start at the user age. And then we go till, in this case, I'm just going to 85. So the chart here you can see just goes till 85. And then what I do is to change my values so you can see how it's going up. I'm going to do last value equals array. So the last, so I reduce it. So I'm doing the age minus the user age. So what this is doing age minus user age, is it's getting me to these values here on the left, which are 0, 1, 2, and 3, which are the position in the array. So I am going last value, or I'm starting, or I just create this last value variable so that I don't have to be writing this out every time. It's a little bit easier to read. Then I do different things like the mortgage selector. The mortgage math was pretty complicated for me to figure out. And then so for each iteration, I'm going to push the new age, which in this case is whatever the for position is. So that's how I'm getting my age 43, 44. So you can see I've got a little bit of an error here because it's replicating. It's doing 42 two times, so I got to fix that. So it's pushing that. Then it's doing a little bit of math to each of the positions. So it's pushing and then making or doing math to increase the values. So in your case, what you're going to be doing when you write yours is you're going to be having to do the math that will be projecting what will the spending be. So for instance, you could do an if statement and say if user age is greater than 65, medical expenses will be this. And then medical expenses slowly go up. And so you have to write your formula to have the medical expenses keep going up until age 95 or something like that. So this is where you're doing all the math, where the future projection of their spending changes. So you're also going to be gathering all the information that they've put in. So all the information in the wizard is going into the reducer. You'll be taking that information, then manipulating it to project it to get your ideas of what their spending would be. So you could say if the car no longer paid, or if they've paid it down, then they don't have to push that value into the array. So this is how, I won't walk through fully how I built this, but basically I spent a lot of time with little mock examples. And then I like this because I can just run it really fast in the console log and get feedback really quick, as opposed to here. I find it frustrating to kind of be going through and then having to find it, and then there's like errors and it refreshes and it's slower. So that's how I write my formulas, and I hope that this helps give you a little bit of an intro to how selectors work and why we're using them. Ultimately, you're writing the formulas that are presenting the data going forward. And the way that you're doing that is using selectors, which are manipulating the total state. Cool. Hope that helps.